Hello, my fellow classmates from Religion 100. So glad to welcome you all to my Islam presentation 2016. As you all know, nothing says Thanksgiving like King Suleiman, and who better to educate you all about Muslim sultans from the 16th century than an Irish kid from Minnesota. But in all seriousness, we do have some pretty interesting stuff about King Suleiman that I want to get into. So yeah, let's get this started. He was actually called Suleiman the Magnificent because of how amazing he was as a leader. And if you look here, this is how much territory that he covered. The Ottoman Empire was huge. It had territory from all these different continents. You've got Africa, the Middle East, you've got parts of Asia, and Europe as well. So he was fighting with a lot of different other empires. The Persians over here, war against Hungary. So it was pretty incredible. It's a pretty incredible accomplishment. It's one of the biggest empires and longest lasting empires in history. So yeah, he was born April 27th, 1495. He was born in a place called Trabzon and was the son of Selim I, who was a sultan. Uh, he he goes along with this same trend of being very educated as a leader. He had an incredible educational background, and at the age of 7, he was actually sent to Istanbul to study science, history, literature, theology. Um, so yeah, knowledge does equal power in Suleiman's case. Uh, he became governor at the age of 15 of this territory, and it's interesting because he actually requested that from his father. The interesting thing about Suleiman was that there's almost kind of like he's one of those people where it was a prophecy sort of deal where stars aligned, etc. Where he was kind of like the chosen one for the Ottoman Empire. So not only was this all kind of in the making, where he was born to do great things, and it was believed that he would do great things, but honestly, you don't make somebody the governor of a territory unless you believe that they're competent enough to do the job. So, that really speaks volumes for early Suleiman, how educated he was, how driven he was, for him to achieve that. And eventually he would succeed his father and become the Sultan in 1520 when he was 26, which is pretty incredible. So he had some very, very important campaigns, and it's important because when we talk about Europe and Islam in Europe, for so long, everything was the Holy Roman Empire, and for Suleiman, apparently one of the big parts of being a sultan was that you had to expand the empire. That was your duty as the sultan, and that was where he decided to start. Was he really wanted, he had his eye set on Europe. So it was really Christian powers versus Islamic, you know, Ottoman Empire. Um, and there were so many campaigns with Suleiman. I mean, he was kind of. I mean, you could compare him to Alexander the Great in that regard, where I mean, he was the Alexander of his time. He was really the leader of the century, and I mean, I could go on and on and on about the various campaigns. So instead, what I'll do, because I only have so much time to talk about this, is I'm going to get into Belgrade, Rhodes, and then the Battle of, it was called Mohawks, which is another good one. But these two are, Belgrade is incredibly important, and Rhodes is just one that I thought was really cool. So we'll get into that in a second. Um, so for Belgrade and Rhodes, Belgrade is incredibly important. It's a huge strategic point. It really is the key to his further conquest of territories in Hungary, um, and he that ends up being a success and allows for that battle I alluded to. Uh, Mohawks is as a result of them conquering Belgrade. Um, and Rhodes is an island. It was a Christian island, and it's important because it's right by Turkey, right here. If you see on the map, Rhodes is right here, and so basically they were in ships and they were actually taking over um, uh, Ottoman Ottoman ships, and they were a huge nuisance for the Ottoman Empire. So uh, the cool thing, basically, in Rhodes was this giant fortress, and at the time, it was probably one of the strongest fortresses in the entire world. And so they decided to take this thing out, and what they did is really cool. How ahead of their time they were, and I mean, it really shows, how the brilliance of Suleiman the Magnificent, that they everybody was using gunpowder, for cannons and whatnot, to lay siege um, to different territories, but they used it in an interesting way, and this is one of the first times this was done. Uh, Suleiman um, got people to mine through the under part and mine out tunnels underneath the fortress, and they set off this huge explosion with the gunpowder, and it was the start of laying siege to this fort. So it's really cool strategy right there. Um, and then this is a very important battle. You know, it it's a huge victory for Suleiman's army against the Hungarians. It's not the end all. The king of Hungary dies during the battle, but it doesn't mean necessarily that he right there conquers Hungary. That's just something that also happened. They completely dominate the Hungarians in this battle, and the funny thing is that the king of Hungary was there, and he doesn't die during the fight. Like, he doesn't get killed by the um, the Ottoman Empire, he in fact gets killed while riding away on his horse. He falls off um, and dies because he fell off his horse. So some other big conquests and campaigns and sieges for Suleiman. He ends up laying siege to Vienna for a time during 1529. The Siege of Guns, Baghdad, Battle of Tunis, Van Iran. He has more fighting to do with the Hungarians, the Siege of Malta, the Siege of Szeged. I don't know how to pronounce that, but I mean, it's it, it's just an incredible amount of expanding of of the Ottoman Empire. He had a huge impact. As I stated before, one of the largest empires in history, covers Africa, Asia, Europe, Middle East. Um, and this is really considered the golden age of Islam because he has these great political and social achievements, and that includes education, taxes, laws, art, architecture. He builds many, many mosques. So yeah, that's your Suleiman fix for your Thanksgiving break. All right, thank you very much.